So these poems are from a series called Letters to Mao, and these are, they appeared in Web Conjunctions in August of 2013. Okay. Dear Mao, I want to describe for you the feeling of sleep, as described by neuropsychologist Giulio Tononi, who uses words like oscillations and waves, while his patient is noted to gather the phrase, the sea moving a boat. Elsewhere are words like sleepwalking and daydreaming, so I can only conclude that sleep is a boundary whose line is slowly eroding. Sleep, like childhood, is more of a sense than an experience we can articulate from beginning to end. As a child in Texas bathed in sun, I often fell asleep in the car, even in daytime, and my father would carry me into the house with my head pressed against his shoulder. If my mother, who was much smaller, was the driver, she would crack open a window on warm afternoons, and I would later wake to the pleasure of utter silence and aloneness, the sun across my face. I want to emphasize to you that both responses were acts of love, and if by chance an airplane overhead excavated an echo in the sky, then I knew that I was cradled in its sound. Inside our home of secret languages, my mother boiled up a pot of salty rice porridge, and my father watched our neighbors like a devout mockingbird, straw doormats, pine wreaths in the winter. So I want you to know that if sleep is an ocean, then it is because we are migrants inwardly sighing along to its many oscillations, unintimidated by factual distances, but awash in the knowledge of three: body, bodying, embodied. And if water is a metaphor, then it is because water fills up a room, slow-moving, blurry, immersive, but obscured. Strangely enough, it was not my father, but my mother who gave us history lessons steeped in a pale, languorous liquid. We sleep where our home is, and we build a home where we sleep. Dear Mao, I want to describe for you the migration pattern of birds, which has nothing to do with sleep, but which I nonetheless find beautiful. When insects sleep, they are awakened only by poetic forces, like the heat of the sun or the darkness of night. The most beautiful of flying insects huddle together in sleep, but little is known about the slumbering habits of migratory birds. Birds, as far as I know, do not fear being shot down from the sky, though fear is a common warning sign for flight. Some birds, feeling their bones weighed down by air, migrate not by sky, but by swimming, their wings waving down the sea as if buoyed by its girth. Other birds are wanderers, their migratory curvatures charted like flowering seeds across the globe. Here on the earth where bones are buried, the question remains: if the birds of history alight by a ritual of body and landscape, do they make the return out of longing, out of heartache? For it is the anthropologist who traces the longing for home between personal biography and the biography of the collective, a map that ends beyond locatable distances into mythical terrains, imaginary homelands. We do this: listen to the body, gauge its violence, take flight. At the end of the day, longing for home is a narrative we are both familiar with, beginning first with a poem about the moon. If my parents never pointed at a map, it was because we already had an earthy colored globe that I spun round and round until the smell of rice porridge drew me near the kitchen, so that ours was always a story of leaving and never an anchoring of place. Dear Mao, we could call this How to Build an American Home, or history lessons, or even dislocated objects, misplaced nostalgia, broken cotton slippers, a shelf of souvenir dolls and slow-wave sleep. Or I found a vast stamp collection and various paraphernalia on the top shelf of my father's cabinet in Texas. Your face was plastered on its pages. I was standing tippy-toe on the counter, and my fingers got printed in dust. I suppose I could say history is personal, or history of others, but we both know how to substitute as for those two-letter verbs and prepositions. Dear Mao, 800,000 soldiers, 30 million peasants, parades of old litter and scrap metal squads. Dear Mao, water bugs flee, seabirds flee. They would like to make it clear they love their kelp, their underwater tempo, but let us have ourselves a parade of sea wings. Dear Mao, a double-ended kaleidoscope. For we hate the evils of men, yet we will measure the circular path of the moon. We will wade through marshes in our rubber boots. We will stoop and pretend tiny plants or pools of stars are forests within which we begin construction, beginning with this creaky wooden frame. Dear Mao, When I was a child, I wanted to wrap my mother's ferns in creamy violets and cozy sweaters, as this was the meaning of potholders I had internalized for myself. The coffee table was made of glass, so I could see the carpet underneath, and it should come as no surprise that in the late afternoon, the light through the blinds cast a mesmerizing pattern of slanted stripes.